Well, you certainly took long enough to wake up. What's the matter? Not a morning person? Oh, by all means, keep struggling. Those ropes around your wrist aren't there for show. And once you realize that, I can watch that pretty little face of yours contort in pain. So go ahead, keep it up. Well, someone certainly has a filthy mouth. Let's try to keep it PG, though, shall we? I don't think Teach would approve of you using such coarse language. Oh, come on. Lighten up, will you? I have no intention of harming you. Surely you ought to know that by now. We've been in the same class for how many weeks now? You ought to know by now that I don't particularly enjoy waiting for my entertainment. If I wanted to hurt you, I would have done so already. And I wouldn't have bothered waiting for you to wake up. No, I would have preferred to wake you myself. Perhaps by shoving mustard and wasabi up your nose, or maybe even tightening those restraints until your body started to go numb. All with a smile on my face. But I didn't do any of those things, did I? And with all the lessons we've been getting lately, I'm sure you're smart enough by now to figure out that if I wanted to hurt you, I would have easily done so by now, without hesitation, without even a moment of consideration for how it would feel for you. So why don't you take a break from struggling and cussing me out, and we can try to have a civilized conversation. How does that sound? Well, that's awfully harsh. I am still your classmate. Don't you think you should be a little bit nicer? All right, fair enough. I did kidnap you after all. I suppose it is only fair that you get a few little digs in. I can certainly understand that, and I would be nothing if I wasn't a fair player. So go ahead, get a couple more in, why don't you? Well, you certainly know how to burn someone, don't you? All right, that one was a little bit weaker, but still good, I suppose. Got anything else? Oh no, that's just plain rude. And inaccurate. After all, I'm not really someone who's referred to as psychotic. A more accurate term would be emotionless, unfeeling, completely lacking in sympathy or empathy. Although the term that the doctors use, well, it seems a little bit silly to me. Yandere. You know what that is, don't you? Don't try to hide it. I've seen the things that you read and listen to while we're in class. Teach might not notice, but I see the way that you're always off in your own fantasy world, completely distracted from the mundane reality. By thoughts of someone who's so obsessed with you, they would do literally anything for you. It certainly seems like something you're quite fond of. Isn't that right? Oh, yes. The condition is real. It's as real as being blind or being depressed. It's as real as you and me. And as it happens, I have such a condition. Hence I said that's what the doctors referred to it as. I've seen several in my lifetime, and all of them said the same thing, no matter how many times my parents begged them to retest me. Oh yes, they were quite heartbroken and disappointed when they found out that I would probably go my whole life without ever being able to feel. Since they have to travel for work a lot, They were scared to leave me alone. They thought, since he can't be afraid of anything, what if he accidentally hurts himself? Or what if he were to hurt someone else since he wouldn't worry about getting in trouble? What if he lets a stranger into the house and ends up getting hurt that way? It put them in such a panic that for a few years they spent all of their time and money looking for a cure. But of course, you and I know that they didn't find one, did they? You and I know that there's only one way to supposedly cure this little condition of mine. That is an incredibly cringy way of putting it, but in terms of fan fiction, yes, you hit the nail right on the head. The only possible way for a Yandere to be able to feel is if a certain person triggers the activation of that part of their brain. Usually, of course, this person is viewed as a love interest, which isn't entirely inaccurate. After all, when we're finally able to feel, it's something that amazes us. It's something that's so wonderful we can never get enough of it, and we don't ever want to lose that ability. We've gone our whole lives without it after all, and now that we have it, now that we've experienced its full spectrum of emotion, we're not just going to let it slip from our fingertips so easily. And that's why you're here. You see, I noticed something different when I first came to E-class. Of course, I thought it was just the adrenaline surge finally kicking in as I realized that the whole world could end. But that doesn't usually happen to a Yandere. It's a 1 in a million case. And that was certainly not what was happening to me now. Then I got my desk assignment. It was right behind yours. I sat down, watched as you took your seat in front of me, and it all became clear from there. You were the one. You were the one who could make me feel this way, who could make me feel at all. I had finally found what my parents tried and failed to look for. And once I got a little taste of it, I was hooked. And you know the slippery slope that tends to take. You know where all of this tends to go from here. Exactly. Addiction. Obsession, infatuation. Call it what you will, but I couldn't get you out of my mind. I simply couldn't stop thinking about you. Every minute of every day, all I thought about was you. I thought about what you would do after school. I thought about the kind of friends that you might have outside of the classroom. I thought about what dreams you hoped to reach before the world might end. I thought about every single thing about you until I couldn't think of anything else. So then I started all over again. Oh yes. There were several nights when I didn't sleep because all I could think about was you. And that's when I started taking notes. Like Nagisa with Goro-sensei, I decided to observe you, learn more about you. I would watch you in class when we were supposed to be reviewing algebra notes. I would watch you at lunch when I was supposed to be eating. I would even watch you during assemblies when we were supposed to be focusing on being the bottom of the barrel. I would watch you, get a feel for what you liked, what you didn't like. And that's how I discovered your little fascination with people like me. You would go on those fan fiction websites of yours. You would look up Yandere Character X Reader fanfic. And from what I could tell, it seems like you really have a type. You would always read the stories that involve the Yandere kidnapping their love interest. The love interest is, of course, always scared at first. They might even lash out. Sounding familiar yet? But eventually they come to realize that they too have feelings for the Yandere. That they actually love the idea of someone obsessing over them, keeping them safe, only ever caring about them. I won't lie, it is quite appealing. After all, having someone who will always love you, always protect you, always cherish you, someone you can be sure will never leave you, will never be unfaithful to you. Who wouldn't want that? Then I started noticing that you were watching videos during lunch. Yandere character ex-listener videos. You really seemed obsessed with this idea of someone obsessing over you. And oh, how perfect that was. I started to get a little bit of an idea. By then, after all, my addiction for you started to turn into something a little bit more romantic. Something that I can only describe as love, even though I don't know what it feels like. Well, not according to typical standards, that is. However, I assumed that what I was feeling for you was in fact love. After all I could think about, all I wanted was to keep you with me. Make absolutely certain that you were safe. Make absolutely certain that no one else could take you away from me. And when I started reading those little fanfics you love so much, when I started watching the same videos I saw you watching, it all became clear what I needed to do. After all, I love you. I want to give you what you want. I want to give you something that you'll like. And you really seem to like the idea of being kidnapped by someone who's infatuated with you. So I decided to do that. You remember how I asked you to stay late and help me with studying for home ec, right? We were supposed to make something sweet. Something for Koro-sensei, of course. But I wanted you to taste test it. I might have slipped a little something into it, and then you fell right asleep. You fell right into my arms. And I brought you back here. I probably tied you up tighter than I needed to. But from what I read, I don't think you had a problem with that, did you? I didn't think so. And now that you're awake, now that you know all of this, there's only one thing left until we get to the happy ending, isn't there? I have to make my declaration of love for you, and you have to accept it. That's all it takes. Then I'll let you go. We can return to our normal lives, happier and in love. Doesn't that just sound so sweet? What was that you just said? I did hear you the first time. However, I don't think I heard you correctly. Why don't you repeat that? What if you don't accept the way I feel about you? That look on your face. It doesn't match the words that you're saying. You're trying to mess with me, aren't you? You're trying to make me so angry that I keep you tied up like this for days, aren't you? And now you're trying to deny it. You're trying to get me all upset, aren't you? Quite a devilish little sadist you're becoming. I can't lie, I do like this side of you. Then again, I like every side of you. Fine then. I'll play along. You want me to get angry? I can certainly do that. All thanks to you now. Just remember, whatever happens now, you did bring it on yourself. I wonder, how will the reality compare to the fantasy? I suppose there's only one way to find out, isn't there?